Welcome to Crimson Guitars, welcome to Patrons Questions, episode 27. Thank you very much for your support, you fantastic people. Okay, today's questions are one on slab sawn versus quarter sawn versus multi-laminate necks. And the answers are pretty much as you would expect them to be. So hopefully no surprises there. And then I have another question from Scott on finishes, refinishing in particular a bound guitar. I'm not a finishing expert, but yeah, this is something we've done and considered in the past. So let's start with Scott's question. Scott McCulloch, he says, "Hi Ben, since you're asking for questions, I have one. And don't forget to ask questions of your own, please, below. I need them. Although no doubt somebody will answer it for you in the comments. Ha ha. I have a question about binding and finishing. I'm going to refinish my old Epiphone Les Paul for sentimental reasons, and I'm going to make it a gold top, which is just, you know, only right, quite frankly. Years ago I sanded through the thin maple veneer, however my mind can't seem to work out the order of things in regard to the binding. Obviously I can scrape off the paint from the top of the binding, but then the binding will not be as tall as the paint and the layers of lacquer. I've not actually yet replaced the binding. I hope you don't need to replace the binding, because if you can avoid replacing binding, avoid replacing binding. Period. It's on the level of magnitude of avoiding getting in a car accident. You want to avoid that. Oh no, I've moved on to the wrong screenshot. Anyway, well, there we go. So we've got to the end of that. Basically, the question is, he wants to know whether he should strip the entire guitar down, the entire top, including the paint and lacquer, etc. that's over the binding, then put the gold top paint over, which would leave a step, a slight step over the top of the binding, and then lacquer, or whether, and this is I think what he's implying, he should leave the lacquer that's over the binding, just scrape in between the binding, clear that, put the gold top, and then proceed somehow from there. And that's not how to do it. You start, think about it from the point of view of building a guitar from scratch, actually. You don't have anything on the binding from scratch. The guitar is built, it's perfectly sanded, you've got the binding, everything's scraped and clean and lovely, and you put the gold top finish, be it gold paint or I really want to make a proper gold leaf gold top. Oh, so much. Anyway, squirrel. Anyway, so don't leave anything on top of the binding. Put your gold top paint or gold top gold leaf, etc. on, and then you lacquer up. And the only thing is, and what we do on builds here is, there is a small step. It's on the order of magnitude of, you know, a quarter of a mil or a third of a mil or something. It's not very much. And essentially you build up the lacquer a little bit more around the edge. And once at the end, it all gets sanded down at the final buffing process. As you're rubbing down and flattening the top with your 800 grit, 1200 grit wet and dry paper, etc., that is where that will be leveled out. So this is much like working out the neck break angle. When you actually boil it down, it's pretty simple. But I spent years worried about neck break angles. And I remember lying up awake at night trying to figure out how to do binding without a router. because routers scared the bejesus out of me, and still do to a certain extent. So anyway, that's what you need to do. Basically, strip the whole guitar down, get it absolutely ready for finish. You do not want to be trying to selectively scrape parts of it, do some finishing, and then re-selectively scrape the other parts. That way lies utter madness. And yeah, don't do it. This is a question from Bizman62. Bizman62 yesterday sent us a comment saying he felt slightly cheated because the The $10 and up Patreon supporters get behind the scenes videos. And Patreon sent out a notice saying that we just uploaded a video to that. And then that video was also made live on YouTube, because those $10 videos are basically a month in advance on Patreon. What actually happened was, in order to make the video live on YouTube, Talitha had to slightly edit something, and Patreon sent out a notice, and that was about a video that has been up for a month already. So yeah, we're trying to figure out a way to do that doesn't involve sending out mass notifications all the time. Anyway, talking about necks. Stop moving. I've taken screenshots on my phone and I'm cycling between photos. Thou shalt swipe neither to the left nor to the right. This is now the modern equivalent of don't eat yellow snow. Somebody hands you their phone, you look at the photo and you hand it straight back. Okay, quarter sawn versus slab sawn. If slab sawn planks are laminated sideways so that the grain direction is vertical, how much would it differ to a quarter sawn massive block? Or if the quarter sawn block is thick enough to be book matched for a neck? Total qualities aside, tone? Don't talk about tone. Would there be any other differences, and how would they affect, at least theoretically speaking? Okay, so essentially, basically you're talking about taking a quarter sawn plank and, a slab sawn plank. So your strings are here, floating up, and the grain is going like that. All of you understand this. I watched a video the other day where some tutorial videos on YouTube are aimed at the very lowest level of craftsman. This person literally said, "Oh, don't forget to turn the sander on at the wall before you try and use it." And I'm hoping that we're not at this stage. But anyway, strings are here, slab sawn, quarter sawn goes up towards the strings. Quarter sawn is much stronger because the tension is pulling the neck that way. We had a fender neck in Kelly Jones, Stereophonics, one of his Jaguars, I think it was. And that neck was perfectly slab sawn, but also had a really wide grain. And it moved, literally bolting it into the body made the whole thing move. That's how little strength there was inherent in that neck. We managed to get it to a point where he liked it anyway. Now, what I meant to say with that was quarter sawn and slab sawn is one thing, but the width of the grain is another. So if you're talking about mahoganies, stuff like that, it's fairly homogeneous. Maple is fairly homogeneous as well. But if you've got a much wider grain, it will not be as strong. If you take a quarter sawn neck, a slab sawn neck, turn it on its side and laminate it together, it will always be stronger than just a quarter sawn neck on its own. Okay. The reason to use quarter sawn necks is because it is the quickest way to get a strong neck. I've heard figures of like 15-20% stronger than standard, than a slab sawn neck, although it could be much stronger than some, as I've just said. So a multi-laminate neck, you've got glue. Often when you've got watch these videos on YouTube of people doing joint tests. They'll glue joints together. Often the glue is perfectly fine and it's the wood that snaps. And this is the thing with a multi-laminate neck. If you book match two pieces together of quarter sawn, or you take slab sawn, put it on its end and make up a multi-laminate of quarter sawn, it will be better, period. And it will sound better. It will be more, yeah, we're going into tone wood again. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. If you have any questions or comments on what I've said, please put it down below. And if you have more questions for the show moving forward, I need fodder, I need grist for my mill. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Squirrel.